So I want to talk to you about a local issue at the moment. So you would be aware of all of these issues that are taking place in Melbourne at the moment when it comes to hotel quarantine. So basically you had guards who allowed guests to go to shopping centres, go to 7-Eleven, get whatever they want. There's even suggestions that guards were sleeping with guests and other guests were playing cards in other rooms. So there's a whole quagmire of issues that they've had. It's a different story in Queensland, isn't it? What was your experience with Queensland quarantine?
Look, I honestly don't know where to begin with this story in Victoria. There's so many horrors here to unpack. It's very hard to just pick one. Look, keeping our Australian public safe and protected from a global pandemic is essentially a sacred trust that we should hold in a government. So for me, the first thought is, who on earth considered outsourcing this security? I think that's a massive question to begin with. I know these are hard financial times, but this takes professionals with honour who are in the service of their country. Now, in Brisbane, right from the minute you got off the plane, you hit a phalanx of armed police officers who then took all your details and registered you. The police officers then escorted you group by group onto buses where you were overseen by professional soldiers. We then get to the hotel, and again, it's police and it's soldiers who took care of everything. We were not allowed to leave our rooms unless a police officer came and escorted us down to a common area where there was the army to keep an eye on us, and then we were escorted back. They made it very, very clear. You can receive a care package from a loved one, and trust me, I asked for a few, but you couldn't send anything out. Not even a piece of paper could leave your room. So the thought that people could just roam about and go to the local shops, that people could congregate. I mean, even in our exercise area, overseen by the military, we had to wear masks or stay 6 feet away. And when we come to security companies, I mean, just the idea of giving this to a security company beggars belief, but there are security companies and then there are security companies. I've seen that around the planet. Some of these companies are just cowboys in it for the rork. Some of these companies are the real deal. But to think that a democratic state outsourced this sacred duty to what turns out to be a fly-by-night operation, it astounds me, mate. It astounds me.
No, well, you're not alone there. And the great irony, of course, is that Victoria had some of the strictest restrictions that had been in place, and now it's all been totally unravelled, and now you've got travellers that may have spread it to New South Wales and maybe even Northern Territory as well. But they did have the option of taking Defence Force, but they didn't take it up.
Yeah, and that I just don't understand that policy decision, because, you know, the other thing you've got to understand too is that it's the asymptomatic carriers of COVID, people who have COVID and have no idea about it, who are just innocently going about their lives and spreading it everywhere. Well, that's the great danger. I feel great. I can go to the 7-Eleven, but I may still have COVID. Right now in America, the leading epidemiologist, Dr. Anthony Fauci, his suspicion is that as many as 20 million Americans have or have had COVID-19 and just didn't realise it. So if you take those statistics and apply it to the people in that Melbourne hotel, and I read one report of a hotel in Sydney where 30% of the guests, 30% of the occupants refused to get a test. I just don't get that.
Well, I mean, I had the Commissioner Mick Fuller on our show earlier on this week, and he said people refusing tests is not going to be happening on his watch. So there's...
Well, thank goodness. It's vital because, you know, to combat this this pandemic, we need to know where it is in the community, who has it, who has had it. Now, we need to develop an antibody test. We need to map this thing, because I've got to tell you, as the Americans keep saying, this disease, this virus is constantly one step ahead of us.
Have you had to have the thing up your nose?
Oh, yes, I did it.
But is it all right?
Oh, it tickled. It made my eyes water. Yeah. I give it a tick.
I asked my wife about it because she had one too, and I asked, and she said it burns. And I was like, what, kind of a hot mustard kind of burn? Is that about right?
No, it wasn't hot mustard, but boy, oh boy, does it go right up there, both nostrils and then right down your throat.
Okay. That's what we got to do. We got to do it.
Hey, I felt very intimate with the nurse afterwards, let me tell you that. Right, well,